Jake suspects his wife Emma's secretive Tuesdays, installs a smart doorbell, and catches neighbor Ryan in an affair. Living with Emma in the suburbs was pretty normal, but something felt off lately. I sat on the couch that morning, watching her get ready, and thought, she's putting in extra effort. It was Tuesday, and she said, just making it cozy, sounding casual. I muttered, seems like more. The unease starting. The clock at 8 o'clock, and I felt a bit off. The house quiet. The window showed the yard, and I noticed her focus. The coffee pot buzzed, and I kept my thoughts to myself, wondering what's up. The door creaked, and I got ready for work. She was different on Tuesdays. That afternoon, I came home from the office, and the place looked too tidy, and thought, always like this on Tuesdays. She had that nice outfit on again, saying, feels good to freshen up, like it was no big deal. I muttered, maybe, the suspicion kicking in. I added, what's the real reason? The worry growing. The table wobbled as I sat, and I felt tense, the house warm. The window showed the street, and I saw her act. The clock ticked, and I stayed quiet, the doubt building. The keys jingled, and I moved on. I was out all day. That evening, I got my work stuff together, grabbing my bag, and thought, long hours again. My job had me gone 9 to 6, especially Tuesdays, and I muttered, miss everything. The unease clear. I added, what's she doing? The tension rising. The mirror showed me tie my tie, and I felt steady, the house empty. The window showed the road, and I saw the routine. The car keys clinked, and I kept focus. The doubt heavy. The door shut, and I left the truth a question. The engine started, and I drove off. Her excuse didn't add up. The next morning, I saw her prepping again, that outfit on, and thought, same thing. She smiled, just cozying up, and I muttered, too much for that, the suspicion firm. I added, something's off, the worry deep. The chair scraped as I sat, and I felt the tension, the room bright. The window showed the yard, and I noticed her effort. The clock at 8:30, and I kept quiet, the truth close. The coffee warmed my hands, and I stayed calm, the doubt growing. The door clicked, and I planned to watch closer. The pattern was clear. That afternoon, I remembered last Tuesday, her being extra busy, and thought, it's every week. The house looked ready, and I muttered, not normal, the unease strong. I added, what's she hiding? The tension building. The desk creaked at work, and I felt focused, the office quiet. The window showed the city, and I saw the gap. The pen clicked, and I kept my thoughts, the doubt a rock. The clock at 3 o'clock, and I stayed steady, the truth nearing. The phone rang, and I moved on, the idea forming. My friend made a joke. That evening, I met Dave at a bar, grabbing a beer, and he chuckled, set up a video call, see who's at your place. I thought, that's wild, and muttered, maybe, the shock hitting. I added, could be smart, the curiosity growing. The glass clinked, and I felt a break, the place noisy. The window showed the night, and I saw a hint. The stool shifted, and I kept quiet, the truth close. The clock hit 7 o'clock, and I stayed calm, the doubt a nudge. The chatter died down, and I planned ahead, the resolve firm. The idea stuck with me. The next day, I drove home, the car quiet, and thought, video call might work. The Tuesdays her excuse, and I muttered, need to check, the suspicion firm. I added, figure it out, the tension rising. The engine hummed, and I felt steady, the road passing. The window showed the suburbs, and I saw a move. The keys turned, and I kept focus, the doubt heavy. The garage door lifted, and I stayed still, the truth a plan. The light came on, and I moved on, the idea taking shape. Her routine bothered me. That afternoon, I watched her get ready, that outfit again, and thought, every Tuesday. She said, cozy day, and I muttered, too much of that, the unease clear. I added, what's going on? The worry deep. The table shook as I leaned, and I felt tense, the house warm. The window showed her moves, and I saw the act. The clock hit 5 o'clock, and I kept quiet, the truth close. The door clicked shut, and I stayed calm, the doubt a guide. The car started, and I planned ahead, the resolve sparking. I needed to know. That night, I lay in bed, her asleep, and thought, can't let it go. The Tuesdays, the joke, and I muttered, got to see, the tension firm. I added, do something, the resolve setting. The pillow was cool, and I felt steady, the room dark. The window showed the yard, and I saw the next step, The clock hit 10 o'clock, and I kept focus. The doubt a rock. The silence grew, and I stayed still, the truth looming. The phone sat there, and I ended with a video plan in mind. The idea start. Dave's joke about a video call stuck with me, and I decided to do something. I sat at the kitchen table that morning, scrolling online, and thought a doorbell might work. The smart woman camera caught my eye, and I muttered, "Worth a shot," the tension rising. I added, "Keep it quiet," the unease growing. The laptop hummed, and I felt the resolve kick in, the house still. The window showed the yard, and I saw the plan, the life a gamble. The mouse clicked, and I kept focus, the doubt a nudge. The order confirmed, and I stayed calm, the truth a step. The coffee cooled, and I moved on, the idea taking shape. I got the doorbell. That afternoon, the package arrived, and I unpacked it, thinking, looks simple. The video and cloud storage feature stood out, and I muttered, "This'll do," the curiosity firm. I added, "She won't suspect," the tension building. The box crinkled, and I felt steady, the room warm. The window reflected the setup, and I saw the move, the life attest. The screwdriver turned, and I kept quiet, the doubt growing. The instructions rustled, and I stayed focused, the truth close. The clock hit 2 o'clock, and I planned ahead, the suspicion clear. The drill buzzed, and I worked on the plan unfolding. I installed it secretly. That evening, I mounted it by the front door, keeping it low-key, and thought, she'll think it's normal. Emma walked by, asking, "New bell?" And I said, "Yeah, just upgraded," my tone casual. I muttered, "Bought it," the relief faint. I added, "Hope it works," the tension rising. The door clicked, and I felt the resolve hold, the house quiet. The window showed the street, and I saw the cover, the life a ruse. The app synced, and I kept focus, the doubt await. The light blinked, and I stayed calm, the truth a possibility. The clock ticked, and I moved on, the setup done. The first week was quiet. The next morning I checked the app, no alerts, and thought, nothing yet. The footage showed just us, and I muttered, normal so far, the unease easing. I added, give it time, the tension holding. The phone buzzed, and I felt steady, the room bright. The window showed a yard, and I saw the routine, the life await. The coffee warmed, and I kept quiet, the doubt a flicker. The clock hit 9 o'clock, and I stayed focused, the truth a question. The screen refreshed, and I planned ahead, the suspicion low. The chair creaked, and I worked on the plan in place. Then Tuesday hit. That afternoon, I was at work when the app pinged, and thought, finally something. The video showed Ryan, our neighbor, walking in with a wine bottle, and I muttered, what's this? The shock raw. I added, not good, the tension spiking. The office went quiet, and I felt the resolve shake, the desk cold. The window showed the city, and I saw the betrayal, the life a shock. The phone trembled, and I kept focus, the doubt a rock. The clock hit 3 o'clock, and I stayed still, the truth looming. The alert repeated, and I moved on, the suspicion firm. He stayed inside. That evening, I watched the timeline, 2 hours passing, and thought, too long. The app showed no movement, and I muttered, what's happening? The anger simmering. I added, need to see more, the tension building. The car hummed on the way home, and I felt steady, the road tense. The window reflected the night, and I saw the weight, the life a mystery. The keys jangled, and I kept quiet, the doubt heavy. The clock showed 6 o'clock, and I stayed calm, the truth close. The engine stopped, and I planned ahead, the resolve growing. He left with a kiss. That night, the next alert came, Ryan exiting, kissing someone goodbye, and I thought, that's her. The angle hid the face, but I knew, and I muttered, caught it, the pain hitting. I added, can't unsee, the tension breaking. The bed creaked as I sat, and I felt the resolve firm, the house dark. The window showed the street, and I saw the end, the life a ruin. The phone glowed, and I kept focus, the doubt gone. The clock hit 10 o'clock, and I stayed still, the truth out. The silence grew, and I moved on, the suspicion a fact. The app saved, and I planned ahead, the plan a weapon. I felt the shock. The next morning, I replayed it, the wine bottle clear, and thought, real deal. The kiss looped, and I muttered, she's with him. The disbelief strong. I added, what now? The tension rising. The coffee sat cold, and I felt steady, the room quiet. The window showed a yard, and I saw the proof, the life decision. The phone buzzed, and I kept quiet, The doubter passed. The clock hit 8 o'clock, and I stayed focused. The truth a guide. The chair shifted, and I moved on, the resolve firm. The light hit, and I planned ahead, the suspicion clear. The weight settled. That afternoon, I drove around, the car silent, and thought, can't ignore it. The video, the kiss, and I muttered, need a plan, the anger building. I added, figured out, the tension holding. The road stretched, and I felt the resolve grow, the city passing. The window showed the suburbs, and I saw the next step, the life challenge. The wheel turned, and I kept focus. The doubt gone. The clock hit 3 o'clock, and I stayed calm, the truth a path. The engine hummed, and I moved on, the plan taking shape. The garage opened, and I ended, the idea firm. The video of Ryan and that kiss replayed in my head, and I knew I had to dig deeper. I sat at the desk that morning, opening the app, and thought, gotta save these. The footage from last Tuesday loaded, and I muttered, proof piling up, the tension rising. I added, can't stop now, the unease growing. The laptop hummed, and I felt the resolve kick in, the house quiet. The window showed the yard, and I saw the task, the life of mission. The mouse clicked, and I kept focus, the doubt await. The file saved, and I stayed calm, the truth a step. The coffee cooled, and I moved on, the plan forming. I started the archive. That afternoon, I checked the cloud storage, adding more clips, and thought, every Tuesday matters. The pattern of Ryan's visit stood out, and I muttered, same thing, the shock firm. I added, got to track it, the tension building. The screen glowed, and I felt steady, the room dim. The window reflected the setup, and I saw the evidence, the life of record. The keyboard tapped, and I kept quiet, the doubt growing. The clock hit 2 o'clock, and I stayed focused, the truth close. The drive word, and I planned ahead, the suspicion clear. The chair creaked, and I worked on, the idea taking shape. The pattern held. That evening, I reviewed the next Tuesday's footage, Ryan again, and thought, no change. The wine bottle, the kiss, and I muttered, every week, the anger simmering. I added, can't deny it, the tension rising. The car hummed on the way home, and I felt the resolve hold, the night cold. The window showed the street, and I saw the routine, the life of betrayal. The phone buzzed, and I kept focus, the doubt a rock. The clock showed 6 o'clock, and I stayed calm, the truth looming. The engine stopped, and I moved on, the plan of possibility. The door clicked, and I stayed ready, the suspicion firm. I played the peaceful husband. The next morning, I made breakfast, eggs sizzling, and thought, act normal. I left a note, have a good day, and muttered, keep her off guard, the relief faint. I added, by time, the tension holding. The pan clanked, and I felt steady, the house warm. The window showed the yard, and I saw the cover, the life of mask. The note sat, and I kept quiet, the doubt await. The clock hit 8 o'clock, and I stayed focused, the truth close. The door shut, and I planned ahead, the resolve growing. The coffee warmed, and I moved on, the idea firm. The surprises continued. That afternoon, I stopped by with flowers, saying, thought of you, and thought, throw her off. Emma smiled, thanks, Jake, and I muttered, she buys it, the suspicion easing. I added, more to come, the tension building. The vase clinked, and I felt the resolve hold, the room bright. The window showed the street, and I saw the act, the life of ruse. The petals fell, and I kept focus, the doubt a guide. The clock hit 3 o'clock, and I stayed calm, the truth a shield. The car started, and I moved on, the plan unfolding. The keys jangled, and I stayed ready, the idea growing. She noticed nothing. That evening, I cooked dinner, the stove on, and thought, she's clueless. The note was gone, the flowers on display, and I muttered, no suspicion, the relief firm. I added, perfect cover, the tension rising. The plate clinked, and I felt steady, the house quiet. The window showed the night, and I saw the gap, the life a game. The fork tapped, and I kept quiet, the doubt passed. The clock showed 7 o'clock, and I stayed focused, the truth close. The dish washed, and I planned ahead, the resolve steel. The light dimmed, and I moved on, the suspicion clear. The plan brewed inside. The next day, I sat at work, the desk cluttered, and thought, need to act. The videos looped, the kisses clear, and I muttered, can't let it go, the anger building. I added, Something big, the tension holding. The phone rang, and I felt the resolve grow, the office busy. The window showed the city, and I saw the move, the life a challenge. The pen clicked, and I kept focus, the doubt gone. The clock hit 2 o'clock, and I stayed calm, the truth a path. The chair shifted, and I moved on, the plan taking shape. The screen lit, and I stayed ready, the idea firm. I kept the act up. That afternoon, I brought home a small gift, a book, and thought, stay normal. Emma said, you're sweet, and I muttered, she doesn't know. The relief growing. I added, more time, the tension easing. The bag rustled, and I felt the resolve hold, the room warm. The window showed the yard, and I saw the cover, the life of strategy. The pages flipped, and I kept quiet, the doubt of memory. The clock at 4 o'clock, and I stayed focused, the truth a guide. The door clicked, and I moved on, the plan a weapon. The light faded, and I stayed calm, the suspicion clear. The idea grew stronger. That evening, I lay in bed, her asleep, and thought, it's coming together. The footage, the act, and I muttered, need a move, the resolve firm. I added, big one, the tension building. The pillow was cool, and I felt steady, the room dark. The window showed the yard, and I saw the next step, the life of decision. The clock hit 10 o'clock, and I kept focus, the doubt passed. The silence grew, and I stayed still, the truth a plan. The phone sat, and I moved on, the idea fire. The door stayed shut, and I ended, the plan set. The plan to catch them kept growing, and I knew the next step was big. I sat at the kitchen table that morning, sipping coffee, and thought, need a trip excuse. The Tuesday videos played in my mind, and I muttered, get out of here, the tension rising. I added, set the trap, the unease firm. The mug warmed my hands, and I felt the resolve kick in, the house quiet. The window showed the yard, and I saw the move, the life of strategy. The phone sat ready, and I kept focus, the doubt await. The clock at 8 o'clock, and I stayed calm, the truth a step. The chair creaked, and I moved on, the plan taking shape. I told her about the trip. That afternoon, I leaned against the counter, saying, got a 2-day trip next Tuesday, and thought, she'll buy it. Emma nodded. Oh, okay. And I muttered, perfect cover, the relief faint. I added, keep her thinking, the tension building. The sink dripped, and I felt steady, the room warm. The window reflected her reaction, and I saw the act, the life of ruse. The dish clinked, and I kept quiet, the doubt growing. The clock hit 2 o'clock, and I stayed focused, the truth close. The door clicked, and I planned ahead, the suspicion clear. The coffee pot hummed, and I moved on, the idea firm. I got the cameras. That evening, I ordered small hidden cams online, thinking, these will do. The living room and bedroom models loaded, and I muttered, cover all angles, the curiosity rising. I added, bathroom too, the tension holding. The laptop screen glowed, and I felt the resolve grow, the house still. The window showed the street, and I saw the setup, the life a trap. The mouse clicked, and I kept focus, the doubt a rock. The order confirmed, and I stayed calm, the truth a possibility. The clock showed 7 o'clock, and I planned ahead, the suspicion firm. The chair shifted, and I worked on, the plan unfolding. I installed the first one. The next morning, I had a camera in the living room, behind a picture frame, and thought, can't see this. The lens peeked out, and I muttered, good spot. The relief growing. I added, link it up, the tension rising. The frame wobbled, and I felt steady, the room bright. The window showed the yard, and I saw the cover, the life a game. The app synced, and I kept quiet, the doubt await. The clock hit 9 o'clock, and I stayed focused, the truth close. The screwdriver turned, and I moved on, the resolve firm. The light blinked, and I planned ahead, the suspicion clear. The bedroom came next. That afternoon, I placed another cam under the dresser, thinking, she won't check here. The angle covered the bed, and I muttered, got it, the shock firm. I added, record everything, the tension building. The drawer slid, and I felt the resolve hold, the house quiet. The window reflected the setup, and I saw the move, the life a challenge. The cable tucked, and I kept focus, the doubt gone. The clock at 3 o'clock, and I stayed calm, the truth a shield. The phone buzzed, and I planned ahead, the suspicion a fact. The frame settled, and I moved on, the plan a weapon. The bathroom was tricky. That evening, I hid a camera behind a curtain, thinking, risky but worth it. The lens faced the tub, and I muttered, cover all bases, the anger simmering. I added, she won't notice, the tension rising. The rod clinked, and I felt steady, the room dim. The window showed the night, and I saw the trap, the life of decision. The app linked, and I kept quiet, the doubt had passed. The clock showed 8 o'clock, and I stayed focused, the truth a path. The curtain fell, and I moved on, the resolve steel. The light faded, and I planned ahead, the suspicion clear. I tested the setup. The next day, I checked the feeds on my laptop, all working, and thought, ready now? The angles showed every room, and I muttered, perfect, the relief firm. I added, wait for Tuesday, the tension holding. The screen refreshed, and I felt the resolve grow, the office quiet. The window showed the city, and I saw the plan, the life a countdown. The mouse clicked, and I kept focus, the doubt gone. The clock hit 1 o'clock, and I stayed calm, the truth a guide. The battery charged, and I moved on, the suspicion of memory. The desk creaked, and I planned ahead, the idea set. I kept it normal. That afternoon, I acted like nothing changed, making dinner and thought, stay casual. Emma chatted about her day, and I muttered, she's unaware, the relief growing. I added, more time, the tension easing. The pan sizzled, and I felt steady, the house warm. The window showed the yard, and I saw the cover, the life of strategy. The plate clinked, and I kept quiet, the doubt had passed. The clock hit 5 o'clock, and I stayed focused, the truth close. The fork tapped, and I moved on, the resolve firm. The light dimmed, and I planned ahead, the suspicion clear. The wait began. That night, I lay in bed, her asleep, and thought, Tuesday's coming. The cameras, the trip, and I muttered, get ready, the tension building. I added, catch them, the resolve setting. The pillow was cool, and I felt steady, the room dark. The window showed the yard, and I saw the move, the life a trap. The clock hit 10 o'clock, and I kept focus, the doubt memory. The silence grew, and I stayed still, the truth a plan. The laptop sat, and I moved on, the idea fire. The door stayed shut, and I ended, the plan locked in. The cameras were set, and Tuesday morning was a big day. I grabbed my bag that morning, acting normal, and thought, time to go. I told Emma, off of the trip, and she waved, safe travels. I muttered, she's clueless, the tension rising. I added, here we go, the unease firm. The car keys jangled, and I felt the resolve kick in, the house quiet. The window showed the yard, and I saw the start, the life a trap. The door clicked, and I kept focus, the doubt await. The engine started, and I stayed calm, the truth a step. The driveway rolled by, and I moved on, the plan in motion. I hit at Dave's. That afternoon, I pulled up to his place, a block away, and thought, safe spot. I set up the laptop, cams live, and muttered, watching now. The curiosity growing. I added, don't mess up, the tension building. The screen glowed, and I felt steady, the room dim. The window showed the street, and I saw the weight, the life a stake. The chair creaked, and I kept quiet, the doubt a rock. The clock hit 1 o'clock, and I stayed focused, the truth close. The coffee sat cold, and I planned ahead, the suspicion clear. The phone buzzed, and I worked on the idea firm. Ryan showed up. That evening, the app pinged. Ryan at the door with wine, and I thought, same as before. The cam caught him entering, and I muttered, here he is, the shock raw. I added, unbelievable, the anger simmering. The laptop hummed, and I felt the resolve shake. The house feed live. The window reflected the screen, and I saw the betrayal, the life a wreck. The audio crackled, and I kept focus, the doubt gone. The clock showed 6 o'clock, and I stayed calm, the truth looming. The feed rolled, and I moved on the suspicion of fact. The chair shifted, and I stayed ready, the plan unfolding. I heard the kisses. That moment, the mic picked up smacking sounds, and I thought, that's them. The audio was faint but clear, and I muttered, kissing already, the pain hitting. I added, can't stand it, the tension spiking. The screen froze, and I felt the resolve hold, the room tense. The window showed the night, and I saw the act, the life a shock. The volume rose, and I kept quiet, the doubt had passed. The clock hit 6:30, and I stayed focused, the truth out. The feed buffered, and I planned ahead, the anger building. The laptop warmed, and I moved on, the idea fire. They talked. That night, I caught their voices, Ryan saying, "Finally alone," and Emma laughing, "He's so naive." And I thought, she said that. The word stung, and I muttered, "About me." The disbelief strong. I added, "Total betrayal," the tension breaking. The audio looped, and I felt the resolve firm, the house feed clear. The window reflected the screen, and I saw the truth, the life of ruin. The mic hummed, and I kept focus, the doubt gone. The clock showed 7 o'clock, and I stayed calm, the suspicion a fact. The feed ran, and I moved on, the anger rising. The chair creaked, and I stayed still, the plan a weapon. The anger hit hard. That moment, I clenched my fists, the laptop shaking, and thought, "Want to smash it." The naive comment replayed, and I muttered, "She mocked me," the rage boiling. I added, "Hold it together," the tension spiking. The desk rattled, and I felt the resolve waver. The room dark. The window showed the street, and I saw the fight, the life of battle. The screen glowed, and I kept quiet, the doubt of memory. The clock hit 7:30, and I stayed focused, the truth a guide. The feed paused, and I planned ahead, the suspicion clear. The phone sat, and I moved on, the idea burning. I fought to stay cool. That evening, I paced Dave's living room, the cam still on, and thought, can't lose it. The kisses, the words, and I muttered, need to wait, the anger firm. I added, big move later, the tension holding. The floor creaked, and I felt the resolve grow, the house feed tense. The window reflected my face, and I saw the control, the life a test. The laptop beeped, and I kept focus, the doubt gone. The clock showed 8 o'clock, and I stayed calm, the truth a path. The feed ran, and I moved on, the suspicion a drive. The door stayed shut, and I planned ahead, the plan a strike. The wait dragged. The next morning, I checked the overnight feed, still active, and thought, they're at it. The audio mumbled, and I muttered, long night, the shock raw. I added, get proof, the tension rising. The coffee warmed, and I felt steady, the room quiet. The window showed the yard, and I saw the record, the life of mission. The screen refreshed, and I kept quiet, the doubt a past. The clock hit 9 o'clock, and I stayed focused, the truth a weapon. The laptop charged, and I moved on, the resolve firm. The chair shifted, and I planned ahead, the suspicion clear. The light hit, and I stayed ready, the idea set. The struggle continued. That afternoon, I sat with the footage, the sound looping, and thought, still going. The naive line hit again, and I muttered, hate that, the anger building. I added, stay smart, the tension holding. The desk creaked, and I felt the resolve hold, the office quiet. The window showed the city, and I saw the plan, the life of fight. The phone buzzed, and I kept focus, the doubt gone. The clock hit 2 o'clock, and I stayed calm, the truth a guide. The feed saved, and I moved on, the suspicion of fact. The screen lit, and I planned ahead, the resolve steel. I reflected on it. That night, I lay at Dave, the room dark, and thought, this is it. The kisses, the words, the anger, it all built up. I muttered, gotta act, and added, control it, the tension firm. The pillow was cool, and I felt steady, the house feed running. The window showed the night, and I saw the move, the life a turning point. The clock hit 10 o'clock, and I kept focus, the doubt of memory. The silence grew, and I stayed still, the truth a plan. The laptop sat, and I ended, the idea of fire. The door stayed locked, and I waited, the plan ready. The footage kept rolling, and I knew the moment was close. I sat at Dave's that evening, laptop open, and thought, wait for the right time. The cams showed Ryan and Emma moving to the dining room, and I muttered, dinner now, the tension rising. I added, bedroom next, the unease firm. The screen glowed, and I felt the resolve kick in, the room quiet. The window showed the night, and I saw the climax, the life of showdown. The chair creaked, and I kept focus, the doubt await. The clock hit 8 o'clock, and I stayed calm, the truth a step. The feed ran, and I moved on, the plan in motion. They headed to the bedroom. That moment, the cam switched, showing them entering, and I thought, here it is. The lights dimmed on screen, and I muttered, time to move, the anger simmering. I added, catch them, the tension building. The laptop hummed, and I felt the resolve hold, the house feed tense. The window reflected the setup, and I saw the act, the life a trap. The app pinged, and I kept quiet, the doubt gone. The clock showed 8:30, and I stayed focused, the truth close. The keys jangled, and I planned ahead, the suspicion of fact. The door clicked, and I got ready, the idea firm. I rang the doorbell. That night, I hit the app button, the chime sounding, and thought, that'll stop them. The feed showed them freeze, looking confused, and I muttered, got their attention, the relief faint. I added, and now the tension spiking. The car engine started, and I felt the resolve grow, the street dark. The window showed the house, and I saw the distraction, the life a move. The laptop shifted, and I kept focus. The doubt had passed. The clock at 8:45, and I stayed calm, the truth looming. The tires rolled, and I moved on, the plan unfolding. The brake lights flashed, and I stayed ready, the anger building. I walked in. That moment, I opened the front door, laptop in hand, and thought, they're stunned. Emma stood in a sheet, Ryan in shorts, both wide-eyed, and I muttered, caught you, the shock raw. I added, show them, the tension breaking. The floor creaked, and I felt the resolve firm, the house silent. The window reflected their faces, and I saw the panic, the life a wreck. The screen glowed, and I kept quiet, the doubt gone. The clock showed 9 o'clock, and I stayed focused, the truth out. The door shut, and I moved on, the suspicion of victory. The air tensed, and I stayed still, the plan a weapon. I played the video call. That night, I opened the footage, the first Tuesday clip, and thought, start here. Ryan entering with wine played, and I muttered, see this, the anger firm. I added, full proof, the tension holding. The laptop speakers crackled, and I felt the resolve grow, the room dim. The window showed the street, and I saw the evidence, the life of revelation. The image froze, and I kept focus, the doubt of memory. The clock hit 9:15, and I stayed calm, the truth a guide. The feed looped, and I planned ahead, the suspicion clear. The screen lit, and I moved on, the idea strike. I showed the live feed. That moment, I switched to the cams, living room and bedroom live, and thought, real time now. The recent clips rolled, and I muttered, watch yourselves. The satisfaction growing. I added, no escape, the tension fading. The laptop warmed, and I felt the resolve hold, the house mine. The window reflected their shock, and I saw the end, the life of triumph. The audio played, and I kept quiet, the doubt gone. The clock showed 9:30, and I stayed focused, the truth of victory. The feed ran, and I moved on, the suspicion of past. The chair scraped, and I stayed ready, the plan complete. They were speechless. That evening Emma stammered, Jake, wait, and Ryan froze, and I thought, no words now. Their faces paled, and I muttered, gotcha, the relief firm. I added, let them sweat, the tension lifting. The sheet slipped, and I felt the resolve steal, the room quiet. The window showed the night, and I saw the collapse, the life over. The laptop beeped, and I kept focus, the doubt of memory. The clock hit 9:45, and I stayed calm, the truth a shield. The door creaked, and I planned ahead, the suspicion gone. The floor groaned, and I moved on, the idea success. I held my ground. The next morning, I stood with the laptop, the feed paused, and thought, they're done. Emma sat, sheet tight, Ryan shifting, and I muttered, no more lies, the satisfaction clear. I added, my move, the tension fading. The table wobbled, and I felt the resolve grow, the house mine. The window showed the yard, and I saw the power, the life of decision. The screen darkened, and I kept quiet, the doubt gone. The clock hit 8 o'clock, and I stayed focused, the truth a guide. The keys jangled, and I moved on, the suspicion of past. The light hit, and I planned ahead, the plan of triumph. The shock lingered. That afternoon, I drove back to Dave's, the laptop secure, and thought, still processing. The looks, the video, and I muttered, they know, the relief firm. I added, next step, the tension holding. The car hummed, and I felt the resolve hold. The road quiet. The window showed the suburbs, and I saw the shift, the life of victory. The wheel turned, and I kept focus, the doubt gone. The clock hit 2 o'clock, and I stayed calm, the truth a path. The engine stopped, and I moved on, the suspicion clear. The door shut, and I ended, the plan a cornerstone. The laptop footage left them silent, and I knew what to do next. I stood in the living room that night, screen still on, and thought, time to speak. Emma clutched the sheet, Ryan shifted, and I muttered, "Keep it cold," the tension rising. I added, "Make it hit," the resolve firm. The floor creaked, and I felt steady, the house quiet. The window showed the dark, and I saw the move, the life statement. The laptop beeped, and I kept focus, the doubt gone. The clock hit 9:50, and I stayed calm, the truth a weapon. The air tensed, and I moved on, the plan in action. I said my piece. That moment, I looked at them, voice steady, and said, "Thank you for proving everything I needed." Emma's eyes widened, Ryan froze, and I thought, "Let it sink." I muttered, "That's it," the relief faint. I added, "No yelling," the tension holding. The table wobbled, and I felt the resolve grow, the room dim. The window reflected their shock, and I saw the impact, the life a turn. The screen glowed, and I kept quiet, the suspicion passed. The clock showed 10 o'clock, and I stayed focused, the truth out. The chair scraped, and I planned ahead, the idea firm. The light faded, and I stayed ready, the anger controlled. I left the USB. That night, I set the drive on the table, recordings loaded, and thought, they'll see it all. The device sat there, and I muttered, "Proof stays," the satisfaction growing. I added, "Can't hide," the tension lifting. The plastic clicked, and I felt steady, the house mine. The window showed the street, and I saw the evidence, the life a record. The laptop closed, and I kept focus, the doubt gone. The clock hit 10:15, and I stayed calm, the truth a guide. The door creaked, and I moved on, the resolve steel. The keys jangled, and I planned ahead, the suspicion clear. I gave the warning. That moment, I turned back, saying, "You'll need this when your family asks what happened," and thought, "They're coming." Emma gasped, Ryan paled, and I muttered, "Set up," the relief firm. I added, "Let them deal," the tension fading. The floor groaned, and I felt the resolve hold, the room tense. The window reflected the night, and I saw the trap, the life ablow. The USB glinted, and I kept quiet, the doubt of memory. The clock showed 10:30, and I stayed focused, the truth of victory. The handle turned, and I moved on, the plan of success. The air cooled, and I stayed ready, the idea set. I called her parents. The next morning, I texted them yesterday, saying, "Important dinner tonight," and thought, "They're on their way." The plan clicked, and I muttered, "Perfect timing," the satisfaction clear. I added, "Face it," the tension holding. The phone buzzed with a reply, and I felt steady, the house quiet. The window showed the yard, and I saw the setup, the life of confrontation. The screen lit, and I kept focus, the doubt gone. The clock hit 6 o'clock, and I stayed calm, the truth a path. The car keys sat, and I moved on, the resolve firm. The coffee warmed, and I planned ahead, the suspicion of fact. They were close. That afternoon, I checked my phone, their ETA nearing, and thought, almost here. The invite was vague, and I muttered, "They'll find out." The relief growing. I added, "No backing out," the tension rising. The desk creaked, and I felt the resolve hold, the office quiet. The window showed the city, and I saw the move, the life of decision. The message pinged, and I kept quiet, the doubt of past. The clock hit 5 o'clock, and I stayed focused, the truth a shield. The laptop hummed, and I moved on, the suspicion clear. The light dimmed, and I planned ahead, the plan a strike. I stayed composed. That evening, I drove back, the house in sight, and thought, "They're inside." The cams showed movement, and I muttered, "Parents here," the satisfaction firm. I added, "Face the music," the tension lifting. The engine stopped, and I felt the resolve grow, the street tense. The window reflected the lights, and I saw the end, the life of victory. The door handle turned, and I kept focus, the doubt gone. The clock showed 7 o'clock, and I stayed calm, the truth a guide. The keys dropped, and I moved on, the suspicion passed. The floor creaked, and I stayed ready, the idea triumphed. The setup paid off. That moment, I heard voices, her parents' confusion, and thought, "They see it." The USB was open, and I muttered, "All there," the relief deep. I added, "Her problem now," the tension fading. The walls shook, and I felt the resolve steel, the house mine. The window showed the yard, and I saw the collapse, the life over. The screen paused, and I kept quiet, the doubt of memory. The clock hit 7:30, and I stayed focused, the truth of victory. The door stayed shut, and I moved on, the suspicion gone. The silence grew, and I planned ahead, the plan of success. I felt the shift. The next morning, I sat with coffee, the house empty, and thought, it's done. The USB, the parents, and I muttered, moved on, the satisfaction clear. I added, new start, the tension lifting. The mug warmed, and I felt steady, the room bright. The windows showed the street, and I saw the future, the life a win. The phone sat silent, and I kept focus, the doubt gone. The clock hit 8 o'clock, and I stayed calm, the truth a guide. The chair shifted, and I moved on, the resolve firm. The light hit, and I ended, the plan a cornerstone. The house felt different after last night, and I knew it was time to act. I sat at the kitchen table the next morning, papers in hand, and thought, divorce it is. I filled out the forms, muttering, done with her, the tension easing. I added, move forward, the relief growing. The pen scratched, and I felt steady, the room quiet. The window showed the yard, and I saw the end, the life a new start. The clock hit 9 o'clock, and I kept focus, the doubt gone. The envelope sealed, and I stayed calm, the truth a step. The car keys jangled, and I moved on, the plan set. I filed the papers. That afternoon, I dropped them off at the court, thinking, official now. The clerk stamped them, and I muttered, no turning back, the satisfaction clear. I added, her move, the tension lifting. The desk creaked, and I felt the resolve hold, the office busy. The window showed the city, and I saw the break, the life of decision. The receipt folded, and I kept quiet, the suspicion of past. The clock hit 2 o'clock, and I stayed focused, the truth out. The door clicked, and I planned ahead, the idea firm. The engine started, and I moved on, the resolve steel. Ryan got hit too. That evening, I heard from a neighbor, Ryan's wife had the videos, and thought, she knows now. The gossip spread, and I muttered, good for her, the relief growing. I added, he's done, the tension fading. The phone buzzed, and I felt steady, the house quiet. The window showed the street, and I saw the fallout, the life a mess. The screen lit, and I kept focus, the doubt gone. The clock showed 7 o'clock, and I stayed calm, the truth a guide. The chair shifted, and I moved on, the suspicion clear. The coffee warmed, and I planned ahead, the plan of success. Emma started begging. That night, my phone lit up with her calls, text pleading, Jake, please talk. And I thought, not happening. She left voicemails crying, and I muttered, too late, the anger firm. I added, ignore it, the tension holding. The bed creaked, and I felt the resolve grow, the room dark. The window showed the yard, and I saw the end, the life over. The phone silence, and I kept quiet, the doubt of memory. The clock at 10 o'clock, and I stayed focused, the truth a shield. The screen darkened, and I moved on, the suspicion gone. The pillow cooled, and I ended, the idea set. I posted the video. The next morning, I uploaded a short clip to an anonymous forum, thinking, let it out. The footage of Ryan entering played, and I muttered, see this, the satisfaction clear. I added, spread it, the tension lifting. The laptop hummed, and I felt steady, the room bright. The window showed the street, and I saw the exposure, the life of statement. The post went live, and I kept focus, the doubt gone. The clock hit 8 o'clock, and I stayed calm, the truth of victory. The comments rolled, and I moved on, the resolve firm. The screen refreshed, and I planned ahead, the plan of triumph. It went viral. That afternoon, the views climbed, thousands online, and thought, blowing up. The forum buzzed, and I muttered, they're watching. The relief deep. I added, her shame, the tension fading. The desk creaked, and I felt the resolve hold, the office quiet. The window showed the city, and I saw the impact, the life a win. The phone pinged, and I kept quiet, the suspicion of past. The clock hit 2 o'clock, and I stayed focused, the truth a guide. The screen lit, and I moved on, the idea success. The chair shifted, and I ended, the plan complete. Months went by, and living alone started to feel right. I sat on my new couch that morning, coffee in hand, and thought, finally free. The divorce was done, and I muttered, peace at last, the tension easing. I added, new start, the relief growing. The mug warmed my hands, and I felt steady, the apartment quiet. The window showed a different yard, and I saw the change, the life a fresh page. The clock hit 9 o'clock, and I kept focus, The doubt gone. The paper rustled, and I stayed calm. The truth of victory. The door clicked, and I moved on, the plan set. I took the new job. That afternoon, I started at the office, desk clear, and thought, different vibe. The work was steady, and I muttered, good move. The satisfaction clear. I added, build it up, the tension lifting. The chair creaked, and I felt the resolve hold. The room busy. The window showed a new city view, and I saw the opportunity. The life a restart. The computer hummed, and I kept quiet. The suspicion passed. The clock hit 2 o'clock, and I stayed focused, the truth out. The phone rang, and I planned ahead, the idea firm. The pen tapped, and I moved on, the resolve steel. I moved to a new area. That evening, I unpacked boxes, the place small but mine, and thought, fresh spot. The old house was gone, and I muttered, no memories. The relief growing. I added, start over, the tension fading. The tape ripped, and I felt steady, the apartment warm. The window showed a new street, and I saw the break, the life a clean slate. The lamp lit, and I kept focus, the doubt gone. The clock showed 7 o'clock, and I stayed calm, the truth a guide. The box folded, and I moved on, the suspicion clear. The keys jangled, and I planned ahead, the plan of success. I met someone. The next morning, I walked into an electronics store, browsing, and thought, need something. A girl approached, selling security cams, and I muttered, irony here, the curiosity rising. I added, nice twist, the tension lifting. The shelf creaked, and I felt steady, the place busy. The window showed the parking lot, and I saw the chance, the life of surprise. The box rattled, and I kept quiet, the doubt of memory. The clock hit 10 o'clock, and I stayed focused, the truth a moment. The receipt printed, and I moved on, the resolve firm. The door chimed, and I planned ahead, the idea set. She was friendly. That afternoon, we chatted about cams, her explaining features, and thought, easy to talk to. She laughed. Good choice, and I muttered, not bad. The relief growing. I added, new face, the tension easing. The counter tapped, and I felt the resolve hold. The store quiet. The window reflected her smile, and I saw the connection, the life a possibility. The bag rustled, and I kept focus, the suspicion gone. The clock hit 2 o'clock, and I stayed calm, the truth a step. The card swiped, and I move on, the idea a hope. The light dimmed, and I planned ahead, the plan a start. I felt the shift. That evening, I set up the new cam, the lens clear, and thought, better now. The past faded, and I muttered, moving on, the satisfaction clear. I added, her out, the tension lifting. The stand clicked, and I felt steady, the apartment mine. The window showed the night, and I saw the future, the life a win. The app synced, and I kept quiet, the doubt a passed. The clock showed 8 o'clock, and I stayed focused, the truth a guide. The screen lit, and I moved on, the resolve firm. The chair shifted, and I ended, the plan of triumph. The new life felt solid, but I needed to tie up the past. I sat at the desk that morning, pen in hand, and thought, write it down. The paper waited, and I muttered, get out, the tension easing. I added, final step, the relief growing. The chair creaked, and I felt steady, the room quiet. The window showed the yard, and I saw the end, the life a resolution. The clock hit 9 o'clock, and I kept focus, the doubt gone. The ink flowed, and I stayed calm, the truth a guide. The page turned, and I moved on, the plan set. I wrote the letter. That afternoon I scribbled, I trusted, I forgave, but I didn't forget, and I'll never let myself be blind again, and thought, that's it. The words hit hard, and I muttered, learn my lesson, the satisfaction clear. I added, move on, the tension lifting. The desk wobbled, and I felt the resolve hold, the apartment mine. The window reflected the light, and I saw the growth, the life a win. The pen tapped, and I kept quiet, the suspicion passed. The clock hit 2 o'clock, and I stayed focused, the truth out. The paper folded, and I planned ahead, the idea firm. The drawer clicked, and I moved on, the resolve steel. I deleted the recordings. That evening, I opened a laptop, files listed, and thought, time to erase. The videos of Emma and Ryan loaded, and I muttered, done with these, the relief growing. I added, let it go, the tension fading. The mouse clicked, and I felt steady, the room dim, the window showed the night, and I saw the release, the life a clean break. The trash icon blinked, and I kept focused, the doubt gone. The clock showed 7 o'clock, and I stayed calm, the truth a step. The files vanished, and I moved on, the suspicion clear. The screen refreshed, and I planned ahead, the plan of success. I formatted the drive. That night, I plugged in a USB, the drive full, and thought, wipe it clean. The format option came up, and I muttered, fresh start, the satisfaction firm. I added, no trace, the tension lifting, the computer whirred, and I felt the resolve grow, the house quiet. The window reflected the screen, and I saw the end, the life of victory. The bar filled, and I kept quiet, the doubt of memory. The clock hit 10 o'clock, and I stayed focused, the truth a guide. The process finished, and I moved on, the idea set, the drive ejected, and I stayed ready, the plan complete. I faced the camera. The next morning, I turned on the laptop, lens on, and thought, say it. The screen showed my face, and I muttered, final words, the relief deep. I added, make it stick, the tension easing. The desk held steady, and I felt the resolve hold, the room bright. The window showed the yard, and I saw the closure, the life of triumph. The mic clicked, and I kept focus, the doubt gone. The clock hit 8 o'clock, and I stayed calm, the truth a lesson. I spoke, some eyes never blink. Some wounds don't bleed, but some lessons burn forever, and moved on to plan a legacy. The screen went dark, and I ended, the idea etched.